You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. Leadership. It seems like everywhere you go today, someone is talking about leadership or discussing problems with leadership. For myself, I've been going through some of the back seasons of Survivor and looking at how ordinary people with ordinary backgrounds sometimes get thrust into leadership positions for which they are very ill-equipped, and they make a mess of it. And you wonder, why don't these people see how they are being? Why is it that they can't really grasp the fact that leadership is about humility? It's about serving. And I think that for a lot of people who don't have a background, haven't been trained in leadership and no leadership experience, they tend to behave in a way that is antagonistic to people. It turns people off. It makes other people very reluctant to follow them because they don't have the right attitude, but they're just imitating what they think leadership is all about. So I am of the opinion that we need more discussion and more training around humble leadership, servant leadership. And today's guest can help us navigate those challenges. He's going to talk about leadership, culture, psychological safety, toxic positivity, and gaslighting. Very exciting, very interesting. I'm speaking with Simon Sinek. He supports humble leaders, those who know they are both a part of the problems they experience and the solutions they can create. I love that. Simon has worked alongside optimist and best-selling author Simon Sinek since 2011. Simon also advances his own ideas to help create people and purpose-first organizations. As a thought leader, speaker, executive coach, and advisor from Toronto, Canada, welcome Simon Shedletzky to Rebelpreneur Radio.
I love it, Ralph. A delight to be here with you and hop into everything you just mentioned. I'm looking forward to our conversation here.
That's a lot of ground to cover. I love the part of your intro that says, among other things, humble leaders are people who know they are both part of the problems they experience and the solutions they can create. It help us understand that juxtaposition. It's very interesting.
Well, I mean, you mentioned this in the opening, that I think the pervasive opinion on leaders is that they suck, and I don't think leaders want to suck. and I think very few leaders wake up in the morning and go like, I'm going to make my people's lives a living hell today. I think that is a very, very small percentage of the population, not even a percentage point of the population. And yet, leadership is hard. Leadership is personal. And it's also ironic, Ralph, that when we do come across a great leader, we often take them for granted until we lose them. And so how do we both identify great leaders? How do we ensure we help great leaders be great? And when people are struggling in roles of leadership, how can they improve and how can we help them improve? And so, I mean, any journey, you look at the 12-step program, for example, it all starts with an admittance that you need to improve, an admittance that you have a problem. And so in the work that I do, if I'm working with a leader who isn't willing to see that they have something to do with the problems they experience, I'm just not the right person for you. And so I'm really attracted to leaders who go, I don't have a speak up culture. I'm not getting the most from my people. And I know I have something to do with it. I may not know exactly what that thing is. But if you're willing to look there, I think there's a willingness to grow and a willingness to transform.
So it's okay for you to suck as a leader. It's not okay for you not to realize how badly you suck and not to seek help, right?
Sure. Well, the proof will be in the pudding because people vote with their feet, and we're seeing that now more than ever with his Great Resignation. It might be okay for you to not realize that you suck, but people will vote with their feet. And as a mentor has taught me, the one thing in common with you and all of your failed relationships is you.
Yeah, that's the common denominator. How did you get interested in leadership? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Pain. I got interested in leadership, quite frankly, because my grandfather survived because of it. So a big part of my history is that my grandfather's a Holocaust survivor. He was in Polish infantry, fought in 1939 when Germany invaded Poland, was in a prisoner of war camp for 2 years. Was approached because he was a well-liked, gregarious person to escape said prison. He escaped, walked home at night only, and then ended up leading himself and 8 others in hiding in farmland of rural Poland to make it through the Holocaust and World War II. And so I think I fundamentally understood the importance of leading others to create better outcomes and a better future. When I was in university, it was what I gravitated towards. It was the classes that I gravitated towards. There was another mentor, a professor of mine, Dennis Shackle, who really showed me what fulfillment felt like, when we use our strengths to contribute to something bigger than ourselves and bigger than profit. And so very early on in my sort of young adult life, I realized that this thing called fulfillment, this thing called, service to others and the people around us really matters and really feels good. And if I could make a life and career doing that, I'd be pretty fulfilled. I say pain because when I then graduated from business school and started my career, my first day at my first job, 1,000 people were let go post-merger. And I saw the tumultuous impact of change on people's, not just their productivity, but their physical and mental well-being. And so I became fascinated with building environments in which people want to be there. We work on average 90,000 hours of our lives. It's my belief that we might as well enjoy most of those hours. I'm not so idealistic that we need to like every minute of every day. But I feel as though we can love every minute of every day if we're doing things that fulfill us, if we're working on things that matter to us, with people who matter to us, and working on projects and things that make a difference that we care about.
Very powerful. And what a powerful example there with your grandfather. That is the life and death leadership test. Hopefully, none of us will have to put our leadership skills to that kind of an ultimate test. But it's a very compelling example that you have there with your grandfather. And thank you for sharing such a personal story. I've got to ask this because of the pandemic and everything that has changed in the world. How has leadership changed since we are now talking about culture and positive work environment, and you've got people that are in flux, people working from home at a distance, some people going to the office, and all of the turmoil? How has that affected these principles of leadership, culture, or psychological safety, for example?
Yeah, I don't, my opinion, Ralph, is it hasn't changed anything. It's just put it under the microscope. I think, so many of our experiences through the pandemic and COVID is that I think there were people who would admit, and I'm one of them, that you were just living for the next thing, that next date night with friends or a life partner, or that next vacation. Me personally, I traveled a lot for work, and that was interesting. It was hard to be away from family, but I kind of defined myself by my airline points, and I defined myself by where am I going next, And there was some of the distraction of just not routine and not the same thing every day. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this thing caused us to put on sweatpants forever and work. Many of us work from home. There are many people by nature of their work were still, driving public transit, bus, out in ambulances, custodians, whatever it might be, that they were still in place. But this knowledge economy worker, all of a sudden we were sort of stripped to our bare bones. And I also have a lot of empathy for leaders as well, Ralph, where they, the microscope was put on them and their leadership, and that they had to serve and do right by people while they were going through the same struggles that we were all going through. And so I don't think leadership changed. I just think many more of us now just had a thing called a job, and either that job, that profession, that career was additive to our life, or it was subtractive. And if it was subtractive enough, I think a lot of people have voted with their clicks and their feet to either stay in place, either for good reasons or just to get by until the next thing comes, or to leave because they decided it wasn't worth it. But I know there are so many leaders out there who are struggling themselves, and instead of getting help so that they can be of better service to their people, they're just taking it out on their people. And their people are saying, return to the office? No, thanks. I don't even want to return to a breakout room. Thanks very much. So, I'm sure there are others' opinions out there that are counter to mine, but it's my belief that leadership hasn't changed. We're just as human as we were thousands of years ago. The only difference is that the context has changed.
Interesting. So humble leaders know that they are both part of the problems they experience and the solutions they create. Talk to us about this interesting term, toxic positivity. What is that about?
So toxic positivity is this phenomena that a lot of people have experienced during the pandemic because a lot of us have been through hard stuff, whether it's, school-aged kids who are now at home, whether it's ourselves or a loved one being sick, whether it's ourselves or a loved one losing a job. It's been a hard time. Toxic positivity is the denial of being able to talk about that hard stuff, that it's a good vibes only approach to life, that we can only talk about the future and we can only talk about good things. And sorry, we let go of your 5 best friends last week. We're going to talk about change and the vision and the future ahead. And that's just not human. I mean, we are emotional beings that have positive emotions, neutral emotions, and negative emotions. And toxic positivity is saying, well, only good vibes, which means we deny people the opportunity to process their hard emotions like frustration, sadness, anger, depression, in a place where they're spending most of their waking hours, which is inhumane. Toxic positivity is when we essentially say the following emotions are not welcome at this workplace. Good luck with that, because emotions just happen. And the greatest leaders among us make it safe to have those emotions. And even if emotions come up in ways that aren't appropriate, we make it okay. And we offer support and say, it seems like you're struggling. What do you need? So that's toxic positivity, where we can only talk about the future. We can only talk about good things, which denies us the experience of processing the emotions that we need to be stable, balanced human beings.
Very, very needed. And you're right. We are human beings. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And part of that human experience is the full range of emotions that we go through. And I think what you're saying is right on track with humble leadership. The humility to allow, for example, feelings and opinions and perspectives that are different from your own. That's also part of a humility in leadership, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that dovetails wonderfully into a speak up culture. I mean, Admiral Bill McRaven, who's a renowned as a great leader, trained his people to tell him, if I'm the emperor wearing no clothes, bad news doesn't get better with time. Please tell me. And I'm fascinated in learning quite a bit, Ralph, about speak up cultures, these environments where we feel psychologically safe and where people are rewarded for bringing their best ideas, their biggest concerns, and even disagreeing, speaking truth to power when it comes to seeing things differently. And I'm a huge proponent of speak up culture. When you don't have speak up culture, you can have catastrophic results. We know for a fact that the Boeing 737 MAX 8 tragedies were a speak up issue, a speak up culture issue, where people voiced their concerns and they were hushed or shushed or even dismissed. We know that's the same instance with the NASA Challenger disasters. And it doesn't need to be that catastrophic for you to still lose out on opportunity if your people don't feel safe to bring up their concerns or even their ideas. And so I've learned that there's two pieces to a speak up culture. And I like to think of it, Ralph, as like a boxing ring, that you actually have to step up and open up the ropes and jump in and the lights are on you. And the two components of a speak up culture is one, that you feel open, that it is worth it to speak up and share of your best ideas, your biggest concerns, or even disagree. And then once you step in and share those ideas, even if they aren't popular, you're rewarded. Leaders listen, acknowledge, and reward you for that behavior. If leaders ignore or punish you for speaking up, you'll successfully bring the Andy Stanley quote to life, that leaders who do not listen will eventually be surrounded by people who have nothing to say, which is the kiss of death inside any organization.
I love that. It reminds me, I don't know what the program was, but the new manager came in. He says, "Yeah, I'm here for you whenever you need anything. My door's always open." Then he disappeared into his office and slammed the door behind him.
Right.
So, we've got our beliefs and our behavior needs to be in alignment. Let's say hopefully someone in this brief conversation right now kind of recognizes themselves. They've got enough humility to say, "Hey, my leadership is not what it should be. I don't have a speak up culture, and I'm not sure what to do about it." What do you suggest would be a good couple of things that people can begin doing right now to really step into being a more humble leader in whatever role they're in?
Yeah, great question. I mean, this is the role of leadership. To lead literally means that you go first. And so if you want your people to speak up, you have to go do it first, and you have to go listen. And so if you come to this realization that, when I do my all hands meetings and ask for questions, and I count backwards from 5, there's no questions, and I move on. Maybe there's more that I could be doing. In the context of our virtual meetings now. Use technology as your friend. Ask people to hop into the chat and write down a word that they're feeling. I've even seen organizations implement like a card system where everyone in their sort of Monday huddle morning meeting can lift up a card that represents an emotion. Red means overwhelm. Green means I have capacity to take on some work. You can find ways to actually have the technology work for us. If you're finding that people aren't speaking up in large meetings, use breakout rooms and put senior leaders in each of those rooms and have those leaders genuinely ask questions and listen. But yeah, if you're here sitting and going, maybe I'm not hearing as many ideas from my people. Maybe when people do speak up, I dismiss them. I think you need to go back to those people and say, I've realized that I've not been the best listener. And I realize that if we only do what's my idea, I'm simply denying us of a better, holistic, diverse experience of everyone's ideas and opinions here. So I'm going to practice a couple things. I'm going to speak last, and I'm going to listen first. There are very few leaders, Ralph, that we can all regard as great leaders. One of them is Nelson Mandela. Like, who can say awful leader when saying Nelson Mandela? I'm pretty sure everyone's like, yeah, he's pretty good. And so when Mandela was asked, how did you become such a great leader? He said, I followed my dad around. My dad was a community leader, and he did 2 things with every meeting. The first is he always ensured that people sat in a circle, because in a circle, there's 0 hierarchy. And the other thing he did is he spoke last, always. The number of meetings, Ralph, that I've seen the most senior person speak first, many. hey guys and girls, everyone, we have this issue. I need to know what your thoughts are. Here are my thoughts. You've denied the opportunity to get the genius from your people. So, call a spade, move toward truth, say that you're realizing there are some things that you can do better as a leader, and then actually do it and ask your people to hold you to account. And when your people dare build up the courage to share feedback with you, the only response can be tell me more and thank you.
Powerful. And I could see some very real ways to apply that. So that's good. I also think that people can become so immersed and enmeshed in their own culture, their own head. It's going to be hard for them to take the self-help approach. So you work with people and with organizations to help craft this humble leadership. What are some of the things that you're working on, and how can people take advantage of your expertise in this area?
Well, thank you. So I do some one-on-one coaching with humble leaders who know that they want to work on themselves to better serve their people. And I do some executive team coaching as well, which is a ton of fun, working with an intact leadership team or executive leadership team, and essentially helping them craft and discover who they want to be, and then close the say-do gap there. There's often a gap between what leaders believe their culture to be and how their people actually experience it, and it's a great joy helping leaders close that gap. So those are sort of the main ways that I support leaders with my work. And I'm always putting stuff out, mostly on LinkedIn, sharing some ideas, doing lots of LinkedIn Lives as well, to really just become fascinated and be a student of this thing called leader. Because none of us are experts in leadership. I think we're all students in leadership.
Absolutely. What's the best way for people to look you up and connect with you, Stephen?
For the time being, Ralph, I'm the only Stephen Shedletzky in the world. So all you Shedletzkys out there, none of you name your child Stephen. There aren't many Shedletzkys out there. It's not like Smith in Poland. Yeah. So if you Google my name, you will find me. I'm most active on LinkedIn. So I do welcome that you send a request to connect on LinkedIn, and feel free to personalize it as well.
Beautiful. So this has really been insightful, and I'm walking away with some real actionable things here that I need to pay attention to. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Thanks, Ralph. I mean, I have a deep belief that the two most powerful human forces that are available to all of us are hope and each other. We all have an ability that if we have hope is believing that tomorrow can be brighter. And for so many of us, we've been in a dark tunnel through this pandemic. And hope is the belief that there is a light at the end of that tunnel, even if we can't see it yet. If you lose hope, that's dangerous, and we need to find hope. And one of the best ways that we can find hope is with each other. As individuals, we're junk, but together we're remarkable. And so I have some amazing friends who believe in me oftentimes more than I believe in myself. And so, we know the old cliche that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So choose wisely. One of my closest friends, a guy named Matt, we're sort of father and leadership buddies. And we're also, accountability partners and fitness buddies. If I make a commitment to myself that tomorrow I'm going to go for a run before my kids wake up, nah. The bed's warm. I let myself down multiple times in a day. I'm quite good at it. But if I make a commitment to my friend Matt that we're going to wake up and 5:13 a.m., he's going to call me and I better have my running shoes on, you bet I'm going to do that. And I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for him. And so we need to foster relationships because that's all that we have. So if we can find hope and we have each other, that's really all we need.
Stephen Shedletzky supports humble leaders. And as we observe, it's those who know They are both part of the problems they experience and the solutions that they create. Stephen has worked alongside optimist and best-selling author Simon Sinek since 2011. Stephen advances his ideas to help create people in purpose-first organizations. As a thought leader, speaker, executive coach, and advisor, look him up on LinkedIn and send him a connection request, Stephen Shedletzky. We will have the link on the Rebelpreneur website as well. Stephen, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your wisdom with us today on Rebelpreneur Radio. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful, Ralph. A treat to join you. Hope it helps.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.